Hello to those that were in the waiting room. We're just going to get started here in a couple of minutes. I'd like to welcome you to the MT 41 Stone Creek North Rural Reconstruction Project online public meeting. We're going to wait about 2 minutes or so, see if anybody else joins us. I know there was a few more that had signed up, so we'll give them a few minutes to get in, and then we'll get started with the presentation. So look to start about 6:02. Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Again, thank you for joining us for this virtual open house and live question and answer session on the MT 41 Stone Creek North Rural Reconstruction Project. My name is Brandon Coates and I'm with RBCI, and we are contracted to MDT to do the public involvement and public outreach on this project specifically. And we're going to get started with the online session, and in a moment we'll have MDT and the project members all introduce themselves. During the online session tonight, MDT is going to provide an overview of the project and talk about all the planned improvements. Following the presentation, we'll have a live question and answer session and answer all of your questions. In order to participate in that Q&A session, I want you to locate the Q&A button that should be on the bottom of your screen, and that'll pop up a box. It'll allow you to type in and submit all of your questions. And you can submit them during the presentation. However, we will hold all questions until the end and answer them after the presentation. This online session is being recorded, and a copy of that recording will be posted on the project website. So please invite any of your neighbors, coworkers, and friends that couldn't attend today to view that presentation. The website address will be shown at the end on the final slide of the presentation. And now I'm going to turn the microphone over to MDT's Butte District Pre-Construction Engineer, Brandon Jones.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Brandon Jones, Butte District Pre-Construction Engineer. Before I introduce the team, just want to read off MDT's mission statement, and that is MDT's mission is to serve the public by providing a transportation system and services that emphasize quality, safety, cost effectiveness, economic vitality, and sensitivity to the environment. MDT maintains a staff with the resources and technical expertise needed to perform the workload for the majority of the state's transportation projects. So I'll start introducing the project team, and we'll start off with Rebecca.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Barbula. I'm with MDT, and I'm the Butte District Design Project Manager. So I'm located in the Helena office for MDT in roadway design. And so my team is responsible for producing the design plans and contract documents for construction. And I'm responsible for managing the project scope, schedule, and budget.
Thanks, Rebecca. Patrick Cross.
Hi, I'm Patrick Cross. I'm the MDT Butte District Biologist, and my role is to work with the design team to minimize environmental impacts and ensure compliance with environmental regulations, and to coordinate with Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks on any fish and wildlife considerations that they have.
Thanks, Patrick. Sam?
Hi, I'm Sam Ulrich. I'm the Environmental Project Development Engineer for the Butte District. I handle the National Environmental Policy Act regulations, as well as the Clean Water Act permitting for aquatic resource impacts.
Thanks, Sam. Dave?
Hello, everybody. I'm Dave Cunningham. I'm the Butte District Construction Engineer and I work out of the Butte office. And my role is I will oversee all the contract administration when this project gets under construction.
Thanks, Dave. And Therese?
Hi there, my name is Teresa Waniak. I'm the MDT Butte District Right-of-Way Supervisor out of Butte. I have 3 right-of-way agents in Butte that will be meeting with property owners to discuss appraisal and acquisition.
Thanks, Therese. Now I'm going to turn the microphone over to Rebecca to talk more about the project.
Awesome. Thank you, Brandon. So this project is located between Dillon and Twin Bridges. So MDT is planning to reconstruct a little over 7 miles of Montana Highway 41, beginning near the Stone Creek Creek crossing and ending just south of the Point of Rock Cemetery. This section of MT 41 was originally paved in 1959 and was last improved in 1985. Seal and cover, also called the chip seal, was applied in 2011 to preserve and extend the service life of the roadway pavement. The roadway is narrow by today's standards with only 12-foot travel lanes and no shoulders. In addition, multiple hills and valleys on the roadway cause a roller coaster effect and limit sight distance. The highway also has heavy truck traffic and an increased number of recreational vehicles in the summer, causing congestion and vehicle passing safety concerns. So some of the things that we considered in the design included improving the sight distance, meaning how far a driver can see in front of them without an obstruction such as a hill, providing more passing opportunities, enhancing safety features, and addressing roadway departure crashes. So MDT began developing this project several years ago. Initial work included gathering and analyzing data, performing field studies, and hosting a public meeting. The information from the evaluations and the input from the public was carefully considered to develop the planned improvements that we're presenting today. And this project is now in final design and beginning the right-of-way acquisition phase. And over the next about 2 years, MDT will be finalizing the project plans and permits, purchasing any necessary additional property that's needed to construct the improvements, and then also preparing for construction. The current schedule suggests that the earliest construction could begin is in 2027, and construction is anticipated to take 2 full construction seasons to complete. So essentially starting in summer 2027 and then going through summer of 2028. However, construction is dependent on funding availability and will be scheduled once design plans are finalized and right-of-way and permits are acquired. And speaking of funding, on the next slide, I'm going to share a little bit of information about project costs and where the funding for this project is coming from. So this project is currently estimated to cost about $36 million to construct. MDT has acquired a $23.9 million grant from the Multimodal Project Discretionary Grant that comes from the Infrastructure for Rebuilding America grant program. So this grant program is overseen by the U.S. Department of Transportation's Office of the Secretary of Transportation. So costs beyond the grant monies, so basically costs beyond the $23.9 million grant, will be funded through a combination of federal and state funds. And the cost share for that is just under 87% federally funded and about 13% state funded. And on the following slides, we're going to kind of move into talking about now the planned improvements and design considerations. So as mentioned previously, Highway 41 is currently narrow and has steep slopes on both sides of the roadway and limited sight distance. So MDT plans to implement several improvements with this project to enhance the safety features that include realigning the roadway north of the Beaverhead River, reducing the number of vertical curves and grades, which is also the steepness of the hills. Adding 8-foot shoulders. So as you can see in the image, we're going to be widening the total top width to about 40 feet, edge of pavement to edge of pavement. With that, we're also going to be adding shoulder rumble strips and replacing the centerline rumble strips. We're also going to be flattening the steep slopes on the side of the roadway and upgrading guardrail and drainage within the project limits. And I'll talk about the roadway realignment north of the Beaverhead River on the next slide. So MDT evaluated numerous roadway alignment alternatives north of the Beaverhead River Bridge. So the top 3 alternatives that are shown on this slide were then progressed for additional evaluation, where they were compared against several design criteria that included cost, constructability, logistics from design, maintenance, and construction viewpoints, as well as environmental impacts. And so the orange alignment, so if you look on the map view, you can see it being traced right now is in the middle of the kind of middle alignment being traced on the map view. And then on the right column of the table view, it says orange kind of at the header. So that's the orange alignment, and it was chosen to pursue as the most practical and the least environmentally damaging alternative based on the design criteria that's shown on the screen. And MDT teams that were involved in the design criteria analysis and evaluation included road design, which is my section, and then geotechnical section, which has to do with soils and the roadway foundation. So making sure we're building on a stable foundation. Environmental, which is like wildlife, wetlands, and permitting. Hydraulics, which has to do with drainage, so culvert drainage, as well as irrigation facilities in the area. Then construction and maintenance were also in on those evaluations, and those are just a few of the disciplines to name from the MDT side. And then also MDT coordinated with external agencies on the alignment alternatives, including the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks, and other sister agencies. And so now I'm actually going to turn the microphone over to Sam Ulrich, and he's going to talk about environmental impacts that we considered in our design.
Thanks, Rebecca. As with any federally funded project, MDT needs to ensure the project is compliant with the National Environmental Policy Act, often referred to as NEPA, and its Montana companion MEPA. Using the NEPA-MEPA process, agencies like MDT evaluate the environmental and related social and economic effects of their proposed actions. Agencies also provide opportunities for public review and comment on those evaluations and their findings. When a proposed action may significantly affect the quality of the environment, both NEPA and MEPA require the agency to prepare an environmental impact study. Most of MDT's projects, including this one, fall under a categorical exclusion. MDT's categorical exclusion form is basically a miniature environmental impact study. This project is being reviewed under NEPA. This review includes a few other important federal acts. They include the Endangered Species Act for the handful listed species near the project area, the Migratory Bird Treaty Act for nesting areas on the underside of the bridges, Section 404 of the Clean Water Act for impacts to aquatic resources, including wetlands, Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act for effects on historic properties. Additionally, other areas of consideration include wildlife crossings and recreational river activities. For this project, MDT conducted site investigations to look for potential environmental concerns and document the environmental baseline in the project area. Our analysis showed that the project should include specifications necessary to protect the environment. I'll now turn it over to the biologist, Patrick Cross, to talk more about proposed environmental features included in our design.
Thanks, Sam. So in addition to the permanent design features, to minimize our environmental impact from the start, certain construction activities will have seasonal timing restrictions to avoid disturbing protected wildlife species and ensure compliance with some of the environmental regulations that Sam mentioned. Examples include, for trout conservation, there will be no in-stream work during the trout spawning seasons in the spring and fall. And that's part of our Montana Stream Protection Act permitting requirements, which are administered by Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. Stream protection permitting will also require that any equipment that's used for in-stream work must first be inspected for aquatic invasive species before the project begins. For Migratory Bird Treaty Act compliance, any tree and shrub removal and removal of the Beaverhead River Bridge, places that birds might be nesting must occur outside of the nesting season, that's from mid-April to mid-August. An exception could be if the contractor uses special methods of deterring nesting under the bridge, like installing nets that block access before the migratory birds arrive. For golden eagle conservation, there will be no construction activities or staging within half a mile of Beaverhead Rock during the winter through spring golden eagle nesting season in order to avoid disturbing documented nest sites there and ensure complying with the Bald and Golden Eagle Protection Act. So this project will also include some permanent design features to avoid or minimize long-term project impacts. And these include designing the new Stone Creek culvert to meet aquatic organism passage needs. So the new culvert will have natural stream bed material on the bottom, and it'll be sized so that the stream flow conditions inside the culvert are like the natural conditions upstream and downstream. So to do this, the MDT hydraulic engineers use models that predict the velocity and the depth of water in different culvert sizes under different stream flow conditions and compare that to what is essentially athletic performance data from cutthroat trout, making sure the water in the culvert won't be flowing too fast or too shallow for fish to swim through. And at MDT, we do call it aquatic organism passage, not just fish passage, because other creatures like aquatic insects, native freshwater mussels, and other aquatic organisms will be able to pass through. And Rebecca will talk more about this culvert later. Also for this project, compensatory wetland mitigation is required for Clean Water Act compliance for any unavoidable wetland impacts due to the project. So in addition to efforts made by the project design team to minimize wetland impacts and even develop some on-site wetland restoration, MDT has also developed a wetland mitigation site at the nearby Beaverhead Gateway Ranch, where since 1997, approximately 118 acres of wetlands and open water habitat were developed to compensate for permanent wetland impacts from this project and other MDT projects in the upper Missouri River Basin. Then, in addition to these conservation measures and design features that are driven largely by environmental regulation compliance, this project will also include wildlife crossing design features that were developed through MDT's wildlife accommodations process. MDT adopted this process to address safety concerns due to wildlife vehicle collisions and to address road effects on wildlife mortality, movement, and habitat use. The way it works is that every MDT project is reviewed for wildlife accommodation needs and opportunities. And if recommendations for wildlife accommodations are made, then those recommendations work their way through all the MDT bureaus for review and approval. Approved wildlife accommodations for this project, which we'll see on the next slide, include a wildlife path that will be built under the Beaverhead River Bridge that provides enough headroom for white-tailed deer to cross. That there will also be wildlife barrier fencing, and this is 8-foot high woven wire fence that'll be installed on both sides of the Beaverhead River for about a half-mile total to help guide wildlife to the path underneath the bridge. That barrier fence will also include wildlife jump outs, which are one-way escape ramps that let the animals jump out away from the road, but not jump in towards it. There will be wildlife guards, which are like double-wide cattle guards, and they'll be installed at approach roads and driveways to minimize the new fences' impacts on local traffic. We'll also be considering an experimental electric wildlife deterrent mat at both fence ends to prevent wildlife from getting into the fenced section. And there's an example of one that's in use, one of these electric deterrent mats on US 287 near Toston between Three Forks and Helena. And then we will also on this project be including wildlife warning signs with flashing lights at the fence ends. So outside of the wildlife barrier fencing, we'll also be using wildlife friendly fencing, which is a 4-wire design intended to keep cattle and horses in while letting wildlife either jump over the fence or squeeze under it. and that'll be installed where appropriate as coordinated with the adjacent landowners. So now I'll turn it back to Rebecca, who will talk more about some of these design features in detail.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. So I'm going to talk about the bridges next within the project. So there's currently 2 existing bridges that are within the project limits. So one at Stone Creek and the other one is at Beaverhead River. So I'm going to talk about both of these structures and the planned improvements for them. And I'm going to start with the Stone Creek Bridge, which is located at the beginning of the project near milepost 9. So MDT is going to be replacing the Stone Creek Bridge with a double cell concrete box culvert for both stream and livestock passage. So MDT teams completed analyses to determine the size of the culvert that's required, as well as the location of the culvert to align the stream side of the box culvert with the natural stream bed. And kind of how Patrick talked about, the bottom of the stream side of the culvert is going to be covered with gravel and other natural stream bed material in order to provide better passage for fish and other aquatic organisms. And then the bottom of the livestock side of the culvert is going to be covered with dirt and gravel to match the surrounding ground cover. So now I'll move over to the Beaverhead River Bridge. So the Beaverhead River Bridge is located near milepost 14.7. So it's about halfway between East Bench Road and the Beaverhead Rock Road, which is the entrance to the Beaverhead Rock State Park. So MDT is going to be removing and replacing the Beaverhead River Bridge with a new structure. So the new bridge is going to be about 181 feet long, and it's going to be a single span design, which means that there is going to be no piers. And this allows for improved movement and passage of wildlife underneath of the structure. Additionally, the bridge is going to be widened to accommodate the 12-foot travel lanes and 8-foot shoulders that are within the entire project limits, so that the new bridge is going to be a bit wider. And then the new structure is also going to have a 75-year design life with steel beams, which are the girders, and a concrete deck, which is the driving surface that everybody is going to be using. And the new structure is also going to be built to the east of the current bridge. And this allows us to use the existing bridge for traffic during construction of the new bridge. And I'll talk a little bit more about traffic control on the next slide. So the final traffic control plans have not fully been developed yet. However, we're moving forward with plans to construct some of the highway and the Beaverhead River Bridge to the side of the current highway to minimize impacts and delays during construction. And MDT will require the contractor to keep accesses to homes and properties open during construction. There may be times of short-term closures when new asphalt is laid in front of an access, but the contractor will communicate with the property owners during those times. And emergency vehicles will always be accommodated through the construction work zones. And we will have more information about traffic control and how to stay informed during construction as it gets closer. So just know that is forthcoming. And now I'll turn it back over to Brandon Coates with RBCI to talk about next steps in the project.
Thank you, Rebecca. Yeah, as we discussed earlier in the presentation, we're currently in the final design and beginning the right-of-way acquisition phase of the project. So the design team is going to continue finalizing the contract documents for construction and acquiring property necessary to build the new project. At this stage of the design, minor changes will be evaluated and negotiated with landowners, but major changes such as moving the alignment or adding turn lanes are no longer feasible. Once the plans are finalized, right-of-way is acquired, and funding has been allocated, the project will then be let for contractors for bidding. Construction will be announced once the funding and bidding process is complete. Again, the current schedule suggests that the earliest construction could begin is 2027. And with that, we've come to the end of our presentation. I'd like to thank you all again for participating in today's meeting. And also remind you to find that Q&A button that's on the bottom of your screen. Go ahead and open that up and begin submitting any questions that you might have that our team can go ahead and answer. And we'll give you a few minutes to start putting those comments in. As the public involvement manager for this project, I am the initial point of contact. So if you have any comments or questions at any time in the future, please feel free to contact me. My contact information is on this final slide, as well as located on the project website. And my email is brandon@rbci.net. So as the project kind of transitions into construction in 2027, MDT is planning to use a variety of methods to communicate with the public, including updates to the project website. They'll use local news media and social media to send out updates and information on how to stay informed during construction. So be sure to visit the project website as it gets closer to construction to get the most up-to-date information. So I'm going to now turn it over to Tyler to see if we have any questions that have come in from the public. Tyler?
We do not have any questions so far. If anyone has any questions, you can just type them in the box after you hit the Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom window. We'll give it a few more minutes just to see if anybody has anything.
And also, if you don't have any questions at this time, but you do come up with one later, feel free to send me an email with that question. We'll make sure to get it answered and get back to you. So. I think we'll give it another minute or so here, and then if we don't have any questions coming in, you can feel free to jump off the presentation, because that will conclude our meeting for this evening.
Chris told everybody thank you. As did Ed. He also said thank you.
All right. Looks like we're not going to have any questions, so we do appreciate all of you joining us. Appreciate your time. Again, get a hold of me if you have any questions in the future, and thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys.